Get ready for the Ochelli Effect. The most underrated voice in all media. The alternative's alternative. Chuck Ochelli.
It is the 19th day of June, allegedly 2017, also allegedly according to that thing we call a calendar, and this is indeed the Ochelli Effect broadcast live from the facilities of Ochelli.com, but also carried on various other networks live, actually, via their streams on certain days. Of course, many people are encountering us via their fondle slabs of choice, their applicable applications through the podcast, which is available on a bunch of different things that I'm not going to bother to list. You can find them all at Ochelli.com. Do appreciate all you guys for tuning in tonight. Now, this is going to be a bit of a different show. Why? Because I'm going to spend a little bit of time on an issue that I think is absolutely necessary to strike upon. Although I feel it's almost a waste of my time, I have to hit it because, well, there is an atmosphere in media at the moment. Yes, indeed, I'm aware of the fact that we've had an attack on Muslims over in the UK that people are making all sorts of speculations about. I'm aware of the fact that the American president didn't bother to make a comment about that. We have a captive individual who was of U.S. origin returned to us from North Korea who has now passed away. He's died because of the conditions he was held in. This is something of concern, absolutely true. You have the continuing saga of what goes on in D.C., et cetera, and I could spend this entire first hour going through those issues. But the truth is that most of that is business as usual. The fact is that the North Koreans returned that individual to us because he was about ready to die, and they did not want him to die in their captivity. End of story. That's the reality. What it is utilized for and what the agenda now will take it up for is yet another story. And quite honestly, it's almost irrelevant. It is a sad thing. There is no reason that a young man should have died for ripping down a propaganda banner. But you know what? As much as we'd like to criticize the North Koreans, we are getting to that point in much of the rest of the world very, very quickly. Through the NDAA, through the protection acts of all sorts, through the declared emergencies, whether they be valid or not, this is the condition of things. We are getting to a point where thought crime will be prosecuted and you will be persecuted appropriately according to the prescription of the state, and that is the way it is. We're here to deprogram those that would accept this as normal. Anyway, there's that. And there is this interesting emergence in media. Now, tonight, who I brought on to begin with on this show is a guy who you might have heard if you've been listening for a little while on the show before. He drops in on the chat room. I would dare call him a fan of the Ochelli Effect. He does listen a lot, and we communicate actually off the air a lot. I refer to him as Regular Joe, which is just a good enough moniker. If he wants to identify himself further, he can do so. But let's protect his anonymity because it might be just a touch dangerous occasionally to agree with a loudmouth like me. So I'm more than happy to have him on, and I definitely want him here today. while I make a very clear statement about a few things. So, Joe, how you doing, man? Are you hearing me okay? Because we had all sorts of wrestling with Skype going on in the closing hours before the show, in the closing moments before the show. Not even sure if we could connect it to the stream, but I know I'm connected to you. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good, Chuck. I hear you just fine. Am I coming through?
Oh, yes, you are. Loud, clear, and crisp. Thank you. Is it inaccurate to say that you're kind of like a fan of the show, that you sort of understand what it is I'm doing and, find it informative and also something that is not there to ramp up your emotions and get you into a state of anxiety? I mean, it's information, a little bit of entertainment because I crack jokes from time to time and make observations that aren't always informative. But, I mean, is that an unfair way to characterize what it is that you listen to on this show?
No, that's not unfair at all. It's fairly spot on. What I find commonly is that you say things that I think, and I don't find that in media. So yeah, I listen to your show, and yours is the only one that I listen to. So.
Well, yeah, at this point, and it's not as though you haven't sampled others and gone through them and found them to be, well, gee, okay, there's some good information here, but now I see where the propaganda is coming from. Now I see what their slant is. And you know, at the very least with me, that when you're listening to a show that I'm doing, it is my perspective. I'm presenting it for the consideration of the audience. I'm not trying to get people panicked. I'm not trying to sell them things. I'm not trying to do a performance art piece. That this is who I am. And you've even been privy to the process when I've turned around and tried to do some of the shows I've done and things like that. So you're well aware, actually, of what goes into this. And yeah, oddly enough, you do seem to agree with me. But that's not why you're here tonight. Just so you know, I don't even want you to agree with me tonight, Joe. I would love for you to tell me that what I'm going to talk about tonight is something that I'm entirely wrong about. I really would.
Okay.
And here's the other thing. As a listener, I want you to understand that in my mind, this show is not about me. This show is actually about the effect that my perspective can have. That's why it's called what it is, right? And when I discuss it and reveal a few new things and reinforce and re-examine a few other things, I'm trying to give that to whoever it is wants to take it and run with it, so that actually guys like you, Joe, and some others who are very supportive, whether they totally agree with me or mostly agree with me or even completely disagree with me, they take the information and move it forward so that they can educate and change things around them if they wish to, but also that they can carry that with them wherever they go. And if they're affected, they have an effect. So really, the Ochelli Effect is you, Joe, and the people that listen and the people that actually turn around and, share the stuff on media, tell their friends about the show. That's the reality of the situation. I bet that makes perfect sense to you, doesn't it?
It does, actually. I think, in short, really what you can say is you're inspiring people to use critical thought, which is precisely what I try to do. I don't want to influence anyone into anything. I just want them to think for themselves critically. Don't latch on to a belief. Don't latch on to propaganda and fear-mongering and fear porn. I mean, society's in terrible shape. They know something's wrong. They're afraid, and they're looking for answers. That makes them willing to latch on to almost anything as a belief. And I don't think that's what you do with your show. I think that your desire is the same as mine, to inspire people to think critically.
Right. Exactly correct. Now, with that in mind, you've also been around long enough. You knew that I had Roger Landry on the show from the Liberty Beacon, right? And, he was kind of a different sort of guest. He used to get really excited and get very passionate about some of the things he was talking about. And some of those things are indeed the things that I recognize, that I've also examined for myself, that I believe as well. So it seemed like a good thing that was going on between us all the way up until 2016. Because Roger was with me for a couple of years before you heard the show. He was with me for a couple of years. And, we went after the Obama administration. We went after the Bush-Clinton crime family. We went after the big pharmaceutical companies. We went after lots of different topics that, you hear all the time that I point out. Listen, these are the things that are not working for you, right? These are the things that are working against you. This is the damage it's doing. These are the lies you're being told. Please look at it for yourself. Please examine it for yourself. And it seemed like Roger and I were almost on the same page, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It really did. Roger, I've heard him several times, and he does get very passionate. Yeah. So a lot of times I would tune out of that show just because of the yelling, and there's a whole lot of personal stuff to back that up. But yeah, the information he provided seemed sound, and you did seem to agree most of the time.
Right. A lot of it, and a lot of it was. But you know what happened in 2016, Joe, is there was a change, and I know that you saw it too, where people that seem to be thinking outside of the box ran for cover into the old boxes that they used to inhabit, sort of like cockroaches, in my estimation, a lot of them. And a lot of alternative media people, de-evolved, if you will, back into their previous state, almost like it's time to go back to sleep, and now I'm going to decide whether I'm going to sleep on the left side or the right side of the bed. And in truth, a lot of the people that were doing alternative media really woke up from the right side of the bed. You think that's an unfair analogy?
No, I don't think that's an unfair analogy. But what I don't understand about how that happened is how do these people who have been in the alt media for so long say for so long that all presidents are puppets of power, all of them say that, and then endorse someone? What do they see that I don't? I can't understand how you go from seeing them all as puppets to this guy's okay.
Well, see, now that was my question to start with, too. And I wondered how it is that they can default to this position where they're defending. Okay, let's think about this objectively for a second. They're defending and making apologies for the actions, inactions, and behaviors of this guy Trump. Previous to that, they were fighting against what they called elitists, people that were, very rich and powerful and influential, that did things that were not for the benefit of others, but really just enriched them and caused them to have control over things. Now, I keep asking the question, how is it that Trump is not an elitist? And they say he's an outsider, and you don't understand, and he wasn't politically correct, and it would have been worse if Hillary was in, and this and that and the third thing. And now I say, look, I'm not here to litigate on behalf of Hillary. I'm asking you, how is it that you support an elitist? Because this is what this guy is. It's exactly the same characteristics. People that think they can get away with anything because of their position. People that think that they can treat people in any way they choose because they are privileged to do so. Now I'm getting a little intense here, Joe, and I apologize. But
roll with it, man.
But it upsets me. It upsets me because these are people that I thought were on a particular track that said, you know what, we need to question everyone and everything. And the power structure, which they claim runs everything, does not appear to be the big show. All right. If it is the banking cabal that runs it, if it is the greater religious organizations, if it's the Freemasons, whatever it is not as advertised. And I've often said on the show, and you know it, that the last legitimate president I feel that was in office, and not even wholly legitimate, by the way, but the last guy who had some legitimacy was probably John F. Kennedy. The last guy to challenge the intelligence agencies was a guy named Nixon. The last guy to walk in there and still be fool enough to believe he was in charge was a guy named Carter. Outside of that, we've seen nothing but puppets and actors in the course of my lifetime. Now, it could be that this has always been the case, but I'm making observations from my lifetime because that's what I feel confident doing. Does that sound unfair to you, Joe?
No, not at all. I mean, if you're alive when it happened, you experienced it personally, right? So it would make it more valid perspective-wise.
Well, you would think so. And a lot of these people that are defaulting to the right-wing position were alive before me, right? So they saw the evolution, the things that I saw post-Watergate and with, President Ford being installed and all of that. That stuff happened when they were adults, some of them, or teenagers, and I was a small child learning to read a newspaper. So you would think that they would have a much greater understanding of what has actually happened from that time to now. Now, why am I talking about this? Okay. Recently, here's what happens. I stopped having associations with the Liberty Beacon. The reason for it directly is that they were being apologists and being promoters that Trump is literally like a savior, that this is the guy who is going to hand us answers in America, that this is the kind of leader we need. Continue to demonize the left-wing side of it because the liberals are really the problem. Let's not talk about the fact that those who call themselves liberals are not really liberals anyway. In fact, Hillary Clinton in action, if you take away her, SJW type rhetoric, okay, and I do mean social justice warrior rhetoric, if you take that away, she's effectively a neocon. So where are the liberals, first of all? I mean, maybe Gary Johnson's a liberal. I don't know. He was a little too stoned to articulate himself, and that was irritating. And there's a libertarian. And, gee, we could get into how the libertarian label's been hijacked, too. But you know what? Screw the labels. I'm here to talk about what's really going on, Joe. Right? So
theater, in a word.
Yeah.
It's theater. I mean, in a word, it's theater, and the people love theater. Why does it work? Because there's a market for it.
Yes, sir.
That's what it is. It's not that the right wing's wrong or right. It's not that the left wing's wrong or right. It's that there is a market available, and that market divides the people. The people never realize that the right wing and the left wing are part of the same bird, and they're in collusion with one another. And all they're doing is keeping you entertained. It's just theater. Donald Trump, no different than Hillary Clinton. And where I live, I am in Trump country, believe me. But even so, there are a great number of people who tell me that they voted for the lesser of two evils. That dumbfounds me. Boil that statement down, and these people have admitted to me from their own mouth with their own words that they voted for evil.
Yeah, but they voted
evil,
for
y'all.
No, exactly. But they voted for an evil that they're willing to defend. Right. That's the interesting part of this. So, again, back to the Liberty Beacon. This was my initial upset. Now, there's that. There's also the fact that, quite honestly, they keep regurgitating some outdated information which has been debunked about the JFK assassination, which, listen, if I went after every single person that did that, I would have no time to do anything else. Okay? But there is a particular mythology that they like to push out there. Okay, fine. But when you combine that with literally trying to lead people onto the right side of the equation, I now place them in the category the same as the Alex Jones who turned around and told you that the left-right wing paradigm is false, but the right wing is the lesser of two evils. I literally tell you that I put them in the same category as Fox News, who will turn around and tell you that they're news.
Again, it's theater, man. Both sides are theater.
Oh, no, it's
really
theater.
are.
It's theater. And you know what? Here's the thing. I've got a lot of criticisms of Jesse Ventura, who may be on this show soon, by the way. But you know what? I've got a lot of criticisms about him, but he said one of the most brilliant things ever. And that is that politics is just like professional wrestling.
I've said that myself.
But he was the first guy I ever heard say it.
Yeah.
And these two, alleged enemies that have been amped up because of the media coverage, even if it's only on the WWE, right, will tell you that they hate each other. They're there to destroy each other. They actually stand for different things. And at the end of the day, the truth is one corporation benefits from both of them. They benefit from the fact that you root for one side or the other. They benefit from the fact that you choose one side or the other. So guess what? Whether you're buying, I don't even know who wrestlers are today, but geez, let's go back in time, whatever. Whether you're buying the good guys t-shirt or the bad guys t-shirt, the same corporation collects the money at the end of the day. And the tickets to go see the events, well, gee, even though it looks like maybe somebody's getting paid more or whatever else, they're all actually owned by the same corporation. Right?
Yeah, just follow the money. There you go. And also something else they have in common at the end of the day, it was all scripted beforehand.
This is also true and a great point. See, now here's the thing. You're hearing me and Joe agree with each other, but I want you guys out there to think about this for yourselves. And I'm going to say this. I made a very serious error in not breaking off my association with the Liberty Beacon much sooner. Because what they have done is now defaulted into becoming a poor man's Alex Jones. Okay, effectively. With a little bit of a Fox News blend to it. Okay. And, just like everything else, if you tune into Fox News, you can actually learn some real information. You have to sift through a bunch of crap to get it. If you tune into Alex Jones, you can get some real information. But you've got to sift through a whole lot of crap and a couple of anxiety attacks to get at it, okay? But what they mix it with is a ton of propaganda meant to drive sentimentality over substance. And this is what they're doing. Now, why is it that I haven't said anything before this? Because honestly, I wanted to try and walk away. I was part of that organization in multiple ways. I actually helped to run the radio network, which failed. I actually attempted to promote certain things with them, which also failed. And at the end of the day, there were many things that have succeeded. He's succeeded over there in creating multiple websites, which do get a great deal of traffic and things like that. But if you look at it objectively, and I tell anybody who wants to, go look at it and tell me that you're not looking at effectively right-wing slanted propaganda and with a little bit of, maybe some vaccine truth in there, some real information, by the way, which I stand by. The information like that I did with Roger Landry on this show, that I did with the Liberty Beacon on this show, I stand by those things. I'm not throwing out all of the baby with all of the bathwater. But what I'm telling you is I need to apologize to you, Joe, and any other listener that decided that this was a reliable source of something that was propaganda free. And I want to make that statement real clear, because they have absolutely fallen for the right-wing narrative. They have absolutely fallen for the pro-Trump narrative. They have absolutely fallen into also the Russian propaganda narrative. And, here I'm going to take some criticism, Joe, because a lot of people go, here he is. He's going to say that Russian thing is real. It's all fake. And, it's just amped up by the Dems and the liberals. And let me explain something. If you had followed many of the things I've talked about over the years, you'd know that I am suspicious of every intelligence agency, and I have a bit of a study on many of them. Russia Today, RT America especially, is designed literally as an intelligence tool. It is meant to utilize, again, some fact and some fiction to portray the Russian agenda to the Western world. That is really what RT is. Now, that's not to say that everything on RT is garbage. See, again, there is some real information mixed in there, but the slant is where the problem is, right? Why did they invest all that money into a state-run news organization, Joe?
For propaganda purposes, of course. And why do they mix bits of truth in with it instead of just telling you a complete lie? Well, that's an easy question to answer, too. It's because it's easier to market if you put things in there that are obviously true. If it's obviously a lie, how are you going to market that?
Now, here's the thing. I've been involved in alternative media much longer than I've been a broadcaster. But when I started becoming a broadcaster, I noticed a very sudden shift in positive Putin rhetoric. You know, a guy who kills journalists. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. He literally murders journalists who speak out against him. He does have the sense to make sure that nobody knows where his daughter is and can get a photograph of his wife. I'll tell you that, because this is a typical gangster, really. This is a gangster on a higher level who's got a government that he runs, who had an FSB and KGB background and went to the special schools, like he told Oliver Stone in the interview that I'm just starting to dissect, which, by the way, I don't know what the hell's wrong with Oliver Stone, but that's another story. He went to special schools for psychological warfare, for stuff like this. He is the head of that government. He has absolutely made sure to do a public image facelift on himself out in the media. And the alternative media had gotten caught up in it. It is permeated with positive Putin stuff, okay, to counterbalance the weak, limp-wristed, okay, feckless, liberal crybaby Obama. That was what it was meant to confront. It was meant to give a contrast. Here's a strong man. Here's a good man who's misunderstood. And isn't he so much better than that weakling fool you have called Obama over there? Well, not to say that Obama wasn't a weakling, a fool, limp-wristed, or anything else. I'm not going to speculate on that. I have always said that he was another pre-selected, okay, chosen one who was selected. So he's no different than Bush before him, than Clinton before that, than Bush before that, than really what was Bush, but, you know, they call it the Reagan administration. Before that, no different. Okay? So you can't tell me that I'm trying to defend Obama. I'm telling you that a positive spin was put on there out for Putin, and it permeated into the alternative media because at least this wasn't American-based propaganda. And it was very effectively done. How did they do this? They also recruited some left-wingers and some right-wingers that they could get from America who were not going to be carried on the mainstream news, who were a bit alternative. The Abby Martins, the Tom Hartmans, let's think here, you know, the irreverent Lee Camp, who has been a guest on this show, okay? People like that. They recruited them to implant them into that narrative. Why? Because it makes it even more palatable for us in the West to accept this as legitimate. And, it's a bit outsider and it's a bit rebellious and that's all there is to it. But it's filled with more facts because we know, anybody who's got half a brain knows that the corporate media over here is reading off a script. Maybe they're not because they're saying something different. So that was sold first in the alternative, now in the mainstream sense. And quite honestly, they are always trying to influence the hearts and minds of those they're targeting. Any large nation state participates in propaganda operations. It's just that the Russian oligarchs, which include Vladimir Putin, had the money, right, to foot the bill for this larger media organization, which is, state-owned, but they had the resources to do it. Any other government would have done the same, and you know what? It is business as usual. But when one looks at that, and then also looks at the recent leaks from people that end up having to go to prison now, showing that there was a literal attempt to hack into the selection process, because I guess they didn't get the memo that most of that is loaded and rigged too. But they attempted to do that. They also attempted to flip the narrative in general in this country. And then you have WikiLeaks, which I'm satisfied is also an intelligence operation. I'm not sure who holds the reins on it, but I'm very sure it's an intelligence operation. And again, we have the feigning of this is the enemy, that's the enemy, you're the enemy, Edward Snowden's in Russia, all of this wonderful drama and dialogue. But the truth is that the Russians did attempt to influence things in America, and I think, again, my observations alone here, I'm not speaking for anybody else, that they succeeded quite well. And they did want a guy like Trump to be in there, because guess what? Today we now have, again, because this is not news really, but again, we have the tensions between U.S. air assets and Russian air assets in Syria, because, quite honestly, the U.S. air assets are protecting ISIS and the Russians are not. But now, because of the chaotic situation over here, the crazy misstatements and contradictory statements from the head of state, and the seemingly, only military-controlled military, which is absolutely against the organization of our government, it should be under civilian control at all times. We have a situation where now there could be justification for lighting off other conflicts. Joe, do you see this?
Yeah, I can. It's almost Orwellian. It really is. Oceania, they had Eurasia and East Asia, didn't they? They always had to have one ally and one enemy. So, all of it's really just right out of the Bernays playbook, though. If people want to get a really good grip on how to recognize that they are being propagandized en masse, then just read that work. It was written in 1928. It wasn't written as nonfiction. There it is.
Right.
There's your playbook.
Right. But trying to support the idea that the whole Russia story is just, poor loser Democrats trying to flip the story to, justify their loss for their Lady Clinton there, who was one of the most awful candidates. They couldn't even steal an election and convince the American people that it was real if they did that for her, because she showed no humanity. She showed nothing but the elitist caste in her face, in her actions, in her wording. She showed outdated nonsense when it came to social political structures. Oh, well, gee, voting against Hillary, if you're a woman, that means you're not a woman. We're a bit beyond this kind of gender conflict at this point. We still have gender conflicts, but it's not like that anymore. If this was the 1980s, you might have got away with that. But outdated, outmoded, and absolutely disastrous candidate that they couldn't even steal an election and convince the majority of the American public that it was real, as far as I'm concerned. Okay?
Yeah. Her being female didn't make her a bad candidate. What made her a bad candidate was being a candidate.
There you go.
There are no good candidates. If they were good, they wouldn't be there.
Well, that is the truth of it all. But I'm trying to address the nonsense here. The truth of it is anybody who's risen to that stratosphere in politics in this country is definitely in with some people that you really don't understand are not working on your behalf. They are only there because they were selected by people that are, well, for lack of a better word, criminals on one level or another. Only the best criminals get to ascend and not go to prison. That's the rule, okay? The guys who are not good at it, the low-level guys, well, those are the ones you throw under the bus, go to jail, get killed. That's the reality of it. And again, this is not much different than gangland culture, except that really, a guy like Trump, if you got him alone in a room, not going to know what to do. In gangland culture, the guy who's at the head usually is there because he can handle himself. These guys put up figureheads in order to show to the public as if they're actually in charge. But at the end of the day, they're not. So, back to the problem with the media. This, to my observation, to my knowledge, is exactly what we're confronted with. So, screaming that the whole Russian thing is fake and a fraud, and that Donald Trump is the great savior, that he's going to be the guy that does battle with the deep state and all of this nonsense. And, claiming things like, oh, look at how the Democrats are going after him, and that's the reality of the situation. All those wonderful claims are just the bread and circus. One problem is I didn't get my bread delivery.
Got plenty of circus, though.
That's true.
And boy, do we have a ringmaster now with a pretty red tie and a pretty orange face and a pretty hairdo. Yeah, he's great. I love him.
Well, I object. I object to you calling him pretty, but outside of that, no. Listen, it's the shiny object theory. It doesn't matter if it's beautiful or if it's ugly. As long as it's shiny, people will pay attention to it, and they're certainly paying attention to it. But here's the fun part. Now, behind the scenes, people have spammed me, trolled me. Okay, tried to engage me in different arguments about stupid things like, oh, well, you've got complaints about Trump's corruption, but what about Obama, who isn't in power anymore? What about Hillary? What about the Democrats? And yeah, great. So this is going on. Then there's the attempt to sabotage, to tell people that, really are just out there trying to sell their books and things like that. Because, yeah, I know that was done. In case somebody's listening that knows what I'm talking about, I happen to know that you've diverted a couple of authors away from being on my show. That's fine. That's all fair as far as I'm concerned. But you know what? When you start trying to take your arguments to people connected to me who are in my personal life, and then you continue to spam me on top of it, now you've got my attention. Now you've got my attention, and now I have to go around and explain that TLB belongs with FOX, belongs with EIB, belongs with InfoWars, or as I call them, InfoWhores, etc. Belongs with Panic Attack Jones over there at Jonestown, belongs with all of his wonderful minions. That's exactly where it belongs, because though there is some valid information mixed in there, there is also this absolutely crying out obvious right-wing propaganda meant to prop up the GOP as opposed to the alleged left, the Dems, the liberals, which, by the way, I have no love for either. And they don't love me either, by the way. It's funny. People that call themselves left-wing or liberal, they think that I'm a right-wing nut job. People that are right-wingers seem to keep describing me as a liberal. You know what this tells me, Joe? I'm doing something right.
Yeah, well, if you offended someone, then you probably said something true.
But I'm being polite about it. That's the thing. I don't generally curse on this show. I don't usually scream and yell on this show. I don't sit here and make outlandish statements to get attention. I don't do any of that. I have discussions with people. And we discuss their views, what they've observed, the news as it stands, what it is we can glean from certain situations, and we try to decipher things together in these conversations. I mean, am I just thinking too much of what it is I do, or is that not what I do here?
No, I've heard you let your guests just run on a topic, and I could tell that you were polar opposite of them in perspective, but you still let them run with it. You didn't try to influence them. You stated the way you felt about it, but you weren't rude. You were polite, and yeah.
But see, that's the thing. Engaging in a difference of opinion can be done as well. But it's not going to be done by beating somebody over the head and calling them names and accusing them, because then you're stuck trying to, well, listen, I'm not a liberal because, and let me make this extremely clear. How liberal am I when, first of all, I think that there's no reason why we should not be able to use the word retard. That's sort of a liberal no-no. I'm not exactly politically correct, though I do try to be, again, polite. I don't go and call mentally handicapped people retarded. Not at all. I call normal people that act as if they were mentally handicapped retarded, and I think that's fair. So, not politically correct there. Guess what? I think that having the gun rights issue discussion is a waste of time. You know why? Because it's a tool. And if we were adult enough to handle them, it shouldn't be a discussion. The government doesn't need to be in there. Oops, maybe he's a right-winger. Hold on. Not only do I think that cannabis should be legal, but I think all drug prohibition is absolutely ludicrous, a waste of time, energy, and does nothing more than serve the prison industrial complex. Now what am I, Joe?
I'm in full agreement with that. I've said that for years. The war on drugs is a war on people.
That's right.
Mean, why on earth would a person be sitting in prison for who knows how many years for possession of cannabis? That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. Why would they be in prison for years for possession of a pharmaceutical drug that was pushed on them in the first place by the government that put them in prison?
Oh, gee, yeah, that's another thing. That makes me a conspiracy theorist, too, which is fine. The biggest drug dealers are your governments. Sorry, that's the reality.
Well, who approves the drugs for the market? Isn't that the FDA? Doesn't the F mean food? It's the Food and Drug Administration. Is that not a federal, organization?
Well,
so
technically, probably not. But, the way they present it, though, yeah, this is supposed to be the good. You see, it's okay if you take their drugs and you have their paperwork. That's fine. Doesn't matter if it destroys your mind, your body, kills you, makes you do insane things. If you take Ambien and whatever else, well, that's your problem, not ours. All of that's good. You won't get a drug charge for that, but God help you if you get caught with some cannabis. Yeah. No, it is a war on people, and it's multifaceted. It allows them to be able to benefit through the prison industrial complex, through the legal system, through all of these wonderful things that they've set up to run you through.
Yeah, dude, you can't even buy alcohol where I live. This is a dry county. Yeah, so prohibition's thick where I am, yet there is a massive, massive problem with prescription drugs where I live.
Now I was just going to say that I find that extremely funny. In a place where you're basically in a dry county, I know generally where you're at, but I happen to know it's like for maybe the next, even adjoining states don't have as big of a prescription drug problem as like the area you're in, right? Right,
yeah. I mean, it's the prescription drug problem here is outrageous. And where does that drug come from? Why is it so plentiful? How can there be an epidemic? War on drugs? I don't think so. Well,
right. But let's get back to why, am I liberal or am I conservative, Joe? Which way do we go with this? Do I believe that, I know another one that throws people off. The LGBT thing. Okay. Not a huge issue, I think, because at the end of the day, I think we need to deal with it from a level perspective. When it comes to, don't you want to defend the rights of those people? No, I don't. I want to defend the rights of everyone. We should all be on an equal playing field. It's irrelevant what color you are. It's irrelevant what your financial background is. It's irrelevant what your behaviors are, so long as you're not injuring someone else, so long as there is not clear injury to another person. No, I don't think that we require extra legislation. All people should be protected equally. There should not be selective enforcement.
I agree. If there's one person or one group of people who are not free, then none of us are.
Correct.
What we're stating when we're saying it's all right to oppress these people or deny these people, whatever these people are, I'm not referring to any one group. But if we oppress any group and deny them rights, then we're telling the government or whomever that it's all right to do it to us too.
Well, and the reverse of that, see, because you gotta go at this from all angles. Is I don't agree with the idea of hate crime statutes. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry, I stepped on you there.
But hate crime statutes, right, where there's an extra penalty attached because you decided to, let me not say you, because most of the people listening to me are not criminals. But maybe some of you are, I don't know, but hey, I joke, obviously. But look, for the most part, you're not a criminal. So think about this. The criminals that target individuals because they decided to target them over the fact that they perceive them as being part of a group, whatever that group is, religious, ethnic, again, whatever you want to call it, lifestyle, behavior, creed, I don't care. Whatever it is you want to call it, there are special penalties attached to that? No. Either a crime is a crime or it's not. Either it is an act of violence or it is not. And it should be treated exactly the same way. That's the way I see it. But again, that's not a very liberal thing to say, is it?
I don't know. You sound like a left-wing nut job, man.
Okay, cool.
I'm joking.
I know. But
I just want to disagree with you. I'm just finding it hard to do.
Okay. And look, I want you to disagree with me, but here's the thing. I don't want to swim. If you're on the left wing, cool, you can be there, and we can talk about the things we have in common. If you're on the right wing, cool, come on here. We can talk about things that we have in common, and maybe I can get you to stop following the herd. Maybe I can get you to stop following the herd just by asking you to think for yourself a little bit. Because, as Joe was explaining, that's what I keep begging everybody to do. Look at these things for yourself. Think. And just think it through. Is it logical? Does it make sense? Is this something that lines up with reality as you know it? If not, guess what? You need to question it. And if it's important enough, straighten it out. I don't think that's an unfair thing to do. So I'm willing to talk to everybody, but one thing I'm not going to do, Joe, is I'm not going to allow this platform, which I do have control over, to be a soapbox for propaganda that I believe to be harmful to people. And I absolutely believe that it's harmful for people to embrace this system as it stands. There is the weird rub, right? The system as it stands. Not, left wing, right wing, you got to go with the independent, the libertarian. All these labels are meaningless and have been absconded and were stolen long ago from those that created them with intention.
I can't disagree with that either.
So the bottom line is think for yourself and act for yourself and understand that you don't need to ask permission to be you. Now, I never encourage anybody to commit violence. I guess that makes me a lefty. I don't know. Although I'm hearing lately that lefties are violent. I don't know. So maybe it's changed. I'm behind the times. I don't encourage violence. I don't believe that violence is the path, because the only thing that conflicts that involve violence, because I am anti-war also, Joe. So you know that. But only violent conflicts, all they result in is the most violent of the competitors succeeding to victory. Do you think that's a crazy idea?
It's not. Anytime an empire falls, whether it's despotic or whatever, they replace it with someone worse anyway. And, history should tell us that. And talking about violence, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Almost always you're right. First, sometimes the vultures come in and suck dry everything that appears to be meat. Then from the bones, those are usually picked up. Okay. By the guys who are now going to say, you know what, we're going to take it all back and we're going to get even bigger and badder this time. That's usually the pattern here.
Yeah, it really is. It's always a mob rule. I mean, what the leaders do, they don't actually lead anything. They just exploit the mindset of the people, and they go with that.
No, that is all correct. Anyway, we've almost killed a whole hour. Now, I don't know, Joe, if you want to remain with me in the next hour. You're more than welcome to. But I want to make this statement one more time, just very carefully. I am extremely sorry that I was standing with people that were selling you right-wing rhetoric, people that were because it didn't seem so obvious. It seemed as though we were talking about not wanting poisons and mind control. And I don't mean it in the crazy kooky sense. I do mean advertising is mind control. I do mean that creating certain social norms in society is part of mind control. I do mean that there are people that steer the mass consciousness with garbage. So fighting against that and fighting against the literal physical poisons from the, chemical industry, one way or another, big pharma, or, if you want to go into Roundup and all that, our friends at Monsanto, any of that stuff, I felt that standing against that was the primary mission. But somewhere around this time that we entered into the post-truth era, the alternative facts era, okay? Somewhere where we entered into that in 2016, this is where, unfortunately, those people went. And they've proven it time and time again. Go look at it for yourself. Tell me I'm wrong. Go look at it for yourself and understand what you're being sold. And I am apologizing once again for having been part of it or having supported it as a legitimate source for people to go get real, honest information. Because once you take a look at that and you realize that the politics are interjected into all of these different topics, even going so far as to continue to claim that the great Trumpster will turn around and get involved he's going to reveal the truth about 9/11, Joe, don't you know that? He's going to take on big pharmaceuticals. He's going to get them to stop vaccinating. He's going to do all these wonderful things, even though in his first 2 days in office, he immediately unhandcuffed anything resembling restrictions on big pharma. Yeah, that was the first act he took with one of those executive orders he had to show everybody in a bigly way. And isn't that amazing? But don't worry, he's going to go against all of these things, and he's our guy. And you've been sold a bill of goods, just like they sold hope and change to minorities and people that really felt that they were truly liberal when they sold us Obama, who did nothing but, prop up Wall Street, make sure we could be robbed on a significantly obvious scale regarding, the bail-in, bailouts of banks and all these things. Wonderful stuff. Another puppet for the elites just happened to be in a brown package that time. Now it's in an orange package. And before that, it was in a plainly stupid package. That was George W. Bush. But see, it doesn't matter. Left, right. It's all about pushing the elite corporate agenda. And Global Corp, whether you want to recognize it as the banking cabal or the interaction between the corporations, it really isn't that much different. It all centers around that being the dominant force, and you, the people, are left out of it. Again, I apologize for supporting an organization and being part of an organization that clearly is not fighting against elitists, but is defending them. That's what I got to say about it, Joe. And, we've only got a couple minutes here. What do you think of this hour? I know it was a bit hard to sit there and probably listen to me rail on a little bit and get a little intense. Usually I like having a discussion, but I really appreciate you helping me bring this out. What are your thoughts as we close out the hour?
Well, don't buy the product, y'all. I mean, if you want to be a smart consumer, then weigh the product before you buy into it. Recognize propaganda. And just remember that intelligence is not knowing everything without question. It's questioning everything you think you know.
Man, I could not have said it better myself. A lot of times, by the way, Joe, you type to me things that I'm thinking and say things to me I'm thinking. I just happen to have a radio show, and I've been really grateful that you've been part of it. And I am more than proud of the people that choose to listen to this show, because you guys are the actual effect. You guys are the actual reason why this goes on. It's not about me. It's about you guys and being the people that you are and thinking for yourselves. And you make me extremely proud that you are the people that I attract. People like Joe, people like Patricia, people like Jaron and Jobin and all of these different people. The guy who calls himself Johnny Freedom, who was the first guy to ever sign up at the website. All of these people that have been here all along with me. You absolutely make me proud to continue on with this. We'll see if regular Joe will stick around with us, because Dylan Wade is going to come in, and we're going to change gears and have a little fun in the second hour. So stay tuned to the Ochelli Effect. We'll be right back here at Ochelli.com. And remember, we also have a lot more critical thinking to do, and nobody's perfect. Stay tuned. Second hour of the Ochelli Effect begins here at Ochelli.com, which is where the live show originates from. However, we are extremely grateful to be carried by a variety of other networks, and I'll give you a couple of those names real quick. Awake Radio, Haggy Shack, and Shake and Wake Radio, I do believe, are carrying us tonight. Many others are planning to be added to the list of affiliates at Ochelli.com. And, of course, a special thanks to the fact that Autonomous Media over at autonomousmedia.net not only carries the show live, but carries the podcasts as well, and has been a staunch supporter through many different changes to the Ochelli Effect for a lot of reasons. A lot of good guys over there, and geez, we'll have to just do a thank you list one night and bore the hell out of everybody. Anyway, regular Joe has stuck with me for the second hour, but I am bringing on Dylan Wade. Now, Dylan used to do something called The Truth Speaks. He was a sort of internet radio guy. He's younger. He's younger than me by a lot, probably young enough that, actually not probably, I have a daughter like his age. But Dylan is an interesting cat. He definitely thinks for himself. And quite honestly, is kind of a fascinating film critic as well, because he has a lot of the knowledge that those of us take for granted in these spheres. Those of us that, have looked at things like the Kennedy assassination realize 9/11 is, at the very least, highly questionable. Those of us that realize the 7/7 attacks, maybe weren't exactly as the authorities reported them. Those of us that know that false flag things do happen, but not everything is a false flag, and not everything contains crisis actors, although many people act in crisis. So, all of those things having been there, Dylan Wade is with us. And, again, interesting cat, because I never like to focus on this, but I'm going to mention it today, because a couple of people said, Dylan seemed a little tired when he was on the show last time. Well, you know what? Dylan goes through a little bit of extra effort to come on shows like this. And you know why? Because quite honestly, and here's where I, commiserate with you a little bit, Dylan, and usually don't point this out, but, you're a guy who's handicapped. You're in a wheelchair. And, quite honestly, physically being is a troublesome thing for you sometimes. I mean, you've gotten pretty sick and things like that. And thankfully you're still with us and, still kicking and still making noise with people. And even though you're not doing a radio show for yourself right now, who knows? Maybe you'll get back into the media and do some damage once again. And I've been happy to have been talking to you since you were in high school. Now you're in college. And, I really appreciate the heart and the effort that you put in. So, anybody who wants to complain about that, see me.
And I may not always be tired. It's kind of my voice.
Well, yeah, but I said they said you sounded tired.
Yeah, it might have just been my voice, or I might have been tired that day.
Or a little column A, little column B. All right. Anyway, But either way, I love this guy, and he usually breaks my chops when he comes on too, and makes fun of me or points out something I said wrong or whatever else. You were listening to the first hour, Dylan. Before we get into the subject that I actually have you on for, anything you want to say about what I was talking about? You want to correct me or call me out for something, or because you and I were both actually part of the Liberty Beacon Project at the same time. Yes. And, we did work together a little bit. I never did quite get you onto the radio network when I wanted you to be on, because I was having trouble managing that. And I was at one time, part of the radio network, part of this, part of that, whatever. But the thing is, you're familiar with this topic.
Yes. The sort of right-wing slant of the truth movement is why I stopped doing my radio show. I consider myself in the scale, sort of a left-winger, and I'm like a black sheep in the truth movement.
Yeah, well, and this is why you talk to me all the time, because so am I. There is a right wing, and you know what? You've actually just helped me to refine something I was saying there. I don't know if I made it clear that there is a definitively right-wing slant that is throughout the alternative, again with the air quotes up for those of you who can't see at home, which is everybody because it's a radio show, but with the air quotes up, the right-wing slant in the alternative media, again, air quotes.
And also a Christian slant.
Well, there's that. The Christian thing is not as big as the right-wing thing.
No, it isn't.
I mean, they do walk hand in hand. So, the Christians are not bothered by the right-wing propaganda in a lot of cases and vice versa. So they do cooperate, but they're not necessarily all the same thing. The right-wing presentation, though, is profound. I mean, is extreme. In a lot of, I tuned around to alternative stations just the other night. Couldn't sleep, migraine headache like usual. And I'm sitting there just, flipping around. And all I'm hearing from these people who are supposed to be speaking truth radio and this and that and the third thing is Trump is under attack, right? The fake news is attacking Trump. And this is your truth media? This is your truth media. All, what it is it's all these liberals. It's all these liberals and they and the terrorists are coming to get us because the liberals want them to. And it's sad state of affairs when we've got to look at what's going on in the UK, because talking to some people privately, right? What do? They tell you, look what's going on in Europe. Europe is in absolute chaos. Oh, my God, I'm so glad I'm here under Trump's banner because Europe is in chaos. And
right, because there hasn't been decidedly more chaos since Trump's election.
Yeah, well, coincidentally, none of that's happening.
No. It's amazing.
And look at the violent liberals, because this guy shot up people, at the Congress and all that, right?
Got bad news for anyone who's trying to claim the left wing is more violent. There isn't a division of the FBI and Homeland Security dedicated to left-wing terrorism. There is one for right-wing terrorism, though.
Absolutely accurate point. There is an entire subdivision of Homeland Security devoted to right-wing terrorism. There was a time, Dylan, where there was left-wing terrorism
yes.
in this country. The unfortunate thing about that is that we discovered that quite often they were already infiltrated by FBI agents who were steering it. But hey, pay no attention, nothing to see there. The Weather Underground and, the bombing of federal buildings, smaller ones, draft offices and things like that by allegedly left-wing groups did occur. But that was decades ago. The current problem is not as they're portraying it. Very simple. And I'm not defending the left, by the way, because they're just as counterproductive as the right.
The left is infuriating, and that's somebody who, if a right-winger looked at me, I'm on the fringe left.
Right, exactly. But
they're infuriating.
Yeah, well, they infuriate even me. So, okay, enough with the left-right-wing politics. I mean, is there anything else you want to say, though, about, I mean, did I say something out of line, you think, when it came to describing the Liberty Beacon or putting them now, I believe, in on exactly the same shelf that I do in my own personal psychological bookcase, along with Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones, and all of that right-wing propaganda in one form or another, kind of customized for a couple different flavors, but that's where I put them now. And again, I find it unfortunate, and I apologize for, again, one more time, I apologize for exposing you as the audience, anybody listening to this, to them. But am I out of line, is my question to you, Dylan.
No, I thought you were completely reasonable. I probably would have been a little more harsh, but that's why I'm not the diplomatic one.
Well, anyway, speaking of diplomatic ones, because by the way, Joe, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, great. No, I just wanted to make sure because I know I've kind of ignored you for a couple of minutes, but I wanted to go through that with him. And it's to me, it's good to hear what people are hearing, because I don't always recognize how some of the things I'm saying are landing. So I'm glad that both of you guys, heard what I had to say and understood it. And yeah, I probably could be a lot nastier about it, but I don't want to be. If the crap continues, I will be. That is pretty much where I'm at with it. And I think that's a reasonable position to take as well. But you know what? No more time on this. I'm done. Joe, have you ever watched the show House of Cards?
I haven't, actually. I don't watch very many shows. I tend to fall asleep when I try to watch any kind of series, so I just tend to not.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because that's what keeps happening to me anymore too. And I'm actually looking forward to a couple of things on like Netflix. And see, I don't abandon all entertainment. I try and stay away from, the brutally obvious propaganda pieces that are out there for the most part. And I'm still rather angry with Seth MacFarlane because you ruined my cartoon. Anyway, with your propaganda piece there, I can't stand it. His whole hotshot anti-vaccination, bullying deal that he did on his cartoon. I'm a little irritated with that. And I do watch cartoons from time to time because I need to step away from looking at some of this stuff. I mean, if you're looking at terrorism and people's murders, which, by the way, people come to me, they want me to examine different murder cases because they think it's connected to political things. And, and sometimes it's, the look at the Clinton body count. Sometimes it's, my local city hall, somebody got killed, and I think it's something you should look into. And I mean, I get barraged by the private ones, and also I try and keep track of the news. So sometimes I got to say, you know what, I'm turning my brain off. And I just want to look at something else. So I still use the entertainment. And House of Cards, just for Joe, House of Cards is really interesting. It's a Netflix series. Have you heard of it, though, Joe?
I have. I think it stars Kevin Spacey, doesn't it?
It sure does. Who allegedly, according to some rumors, listens to this show. But
really?
Anyway, yeah, on occasion.
He's one of my favorite actors. That would be kind of cool if he did.
Yeah, listen, I'd be more than happy, and he can come on here and we can have an argument, because apparently he's got his political views in a strange place. But I'd love to have that polite argument with Kevin Spacey on here. But anyway, I like him as an actor, even if he didn't listen to the show. I don't care. Thing is, this show is interesting because it has melded together a lot of the historical corruption in American politics, along with some things that are contemporaneous to current events. And it's all fictional. It's this senator from, I forget if he's from North Carolina or South Carolina.
South.
And actually not a senator. Let me correct myself again. South Carolina, you're right, but he's in the House of Representatives to begin with. Okay. And he ascends through corruption and criminal activity and winds up being, at some point, spoiler alert, winds up at some point being the vice president, then ascends to the presidency in a wholly illegitimate fashion without ever being elected. Again, see historically Gerald Ford. And a bunch of things go on here. It's like you see a little hint of Watergate. You see a hint of the Clinton scandals. You see a hint of the Bush crime family. And it's all following this politician and his wife. Gets a little bizarre and actually has surprised me. Usually I can clock these script writers. It's like, I know where you're going. And House of Cards is the only political show I've ever seen that actually doesn't always have me going, oh, I know what's coming next. And I'm right. So it's a little unpredictable, but after it happens, you kind of go, oh, that made sense. And it's really dark. And if I'm not, now the people that listen to me in the UK might be able to correct me here, but I think that it actually started out with an idea from a British TV show, and yes. they followed a guy who was from the House of Parliament, a fictional character again. And the guy, winds up ascending, and I think they only did one season of it over there. But when Netflix got it and Kevin Spacey got involved with it, it's done really well. Now, I've laid down the primer here, Dylan, for the show, and it's now in its 5th season, I think?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I've watched all of the previous seasons more than once, okay, because it is extremely entertaining. And again, I love seeing the echoes of history and some of what almost looks like predictive programming.
I was shocked at how accurate season 4 was. Oh,
yes. Very weird. Very weird how, elections get swung and, the tampering with voting and all of these things. Actually, a whole lot of truth sometimes in fiction. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. Especially with this show.
Now, it's really gone off the rails in this new season.
Yeah, the absurdity hit the fan.
Yeah, it did, but then again, it didn't. Because a lot of the most absurd, outlandish, and outrageous things that happen in this 5th season, quite honestly, are based on real life.
No, there was only one moment, maybe 2, where I thought this is a little ridiculous. And both of them were at the end of the season.
Oh, yeah. No, and are you talking about, the personal stuff or
the last big twist at the end?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, look, it's a television show after all.
Yes, but everything else had been fairly grounded, and that felt like it was trying to uproot everything we had watched, but really didn't deliver.
But then again, it really wasn't uprooting it, because if you remember in the earlier seasons, there's this idea, which is unique, that the wife of the wretched politician is maybe even more evil than he is, which I've never seen anybody try and portray that on a screen before.
Yeah, no maybe. She's way more evil.
Oh, yeah, but you don't see it at first, do you? Because she's the dutiful wife who sticks by and puts up with everything it looks like to start with. Which is the typical template of, one of these soulless politicians. That's usually the wife they keep anyway, is the one who just says, no, it's okay. I don't care who you're sleeping with. All right, fine. As long as I have the privileged position and the money, we're good. But this does take on a different character as the series evolves. Now, let's leave all that alone. I want to point out to people some of the real life drama that's built in here. But in a general sense, Dylan, let's not ruin it for anybody. Let's explain that the use of terrorism and the war on terror. Now, I love this because they call it ICO in the series. What they're really talking about is ISIS, right?
Yeah.
And you even have the Johnny Jihadis, the homegrown right? What do they call them again? The homegrown radicalized. Isn't that what they call it, Joe?
Homegrown, I caught. That's language I'm familiar with.
Listen, homegrown is always a good thing, except when you're talking about terrorism. But, if it's your plants, as long as you take care of your plants, they will take care of you. Okay, but moving back to it, that whole thing about the radicalized Westerners, the Johnny Jihadis, if you will. You know what I'm talking about, right, Joe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's introduced into the script here. Except it's ICO instead of ISIS. Okay, fine. So there's Americans that are involved. Then they even pull in one of the alleged leaders, foreign leaders of the grand terrorist organization. Turns out he's not quite what he's supposed to be cracked up to be. Turns out, there's different things going on. And meanwhile, the American politician really doesn't understand what they're dealing with. However, the intelligence agency people do. Is that fair, Dylan?
I think Frank at least knows what he's doing.
Oh, no. Frank knows what he's doing, and Frank understands. But, even at this point where, by the way, again, Americans being attacked for terrorist agendas and things like this, all of it built in there. The anti-Islam kind of thing being batted around as a political football, it's all in there. The amping up the war on terror to cover your tracks is all in there. All these things, but there's a lot of elements here. Even the, obfuscating with the purposes of legislation and twisting the news cycle around and having to manipulate that. It's all laid out there bare bones in this series, I think. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, no, I agree with that assessment.
Okay, so what am I missing so far?
In terms of?
Well, in terms of real-life plot points that are introduced into this fictional universe where we have, President Frank Underwood as opposed to, which, by the way, he's a Democrat in there. I love that, too, because really, honestly, he's portraying both sides of the equation, but they just, had to flip a coin, so they made him a Democrat. I love it. But he's definitely doing Republican things and Democrat things and, really no respect for the left-right wing paradigm. If you could put every sort of toxic element of every criminal administration into one place, that's House of Cards, I think.
Yeah, basically. With probably the ability to get away with the crimes a lot better than any of those toxic administrations.
Well, see, now there I'll disagree with you because here's the thing. Most of these guys walk away from office. They don't go to jail. They don't face censure. They get a pre-arranged book deal for millions of dollars, whether anybody buys the book or not. They get a presidential library, Secret Service protection ever after, usually lucrative deals, and they're set for life. They walk away set for life, fully taken care of, et cetera, and it doesn't matter the criminal actions that they participated in. So
no, you're correct there, but I think what I was trying to say was Frank is, however long this show's going to go, I don't know how long it's going to be, but he's going to find a way to exceed the legal limits of his presidency a lot more efficiently than any real life administration.
Well, but again, here's the problem with that statement, Dylan, and I want Joe to chime in on this. The reason why you think that is because most of the history and the crimes have really been covered up and hidden.
No, I mean, when I said legal limits, I meant like term limit.
Oh, yeah, but even that has been, challenged and messed around with a bit. I mean, I contend that George H.W. Bush controlled the presidency for 12 years. First having been the puppet master for Reagan and then having 4 years of his own. And then if you want to get into it further, I'm sure he had a little bit of a say when his son was in there, regardless of what they told us. So, the political dynasty and holding control. Well, hang on. The political dynasty and holding control of a situation way past where you're supposed to, that's nothing new. That's reality. So, and then the crime part of it, where, he doesn't get busted. He kind of gets busted, but he doesn't really get busted. That's real world. That's like, real world politics 9. What can I say?
He gets away. He gets caught, but he maneuvers his way out of it.
See, but isn't that the case with most politicians?
Yes.
Dick Cheney, when he was first trying to get into the White House staff, they didn't want to accept him because he had a DUI on him, right? So he had a felony DUI, and they had to make an exception to get him into the White House.
We're going to ignore the fact that he shot someone, right?
Oh, no. That came later because you know what I'm talking about, Dylan? I'm talking about when Cheney came in during the Ford administration.
Oh.
See,
okay.
Later on, he shoots somebody in the face. It was a hunting accident. I'm sorry. I thought my best friend was a deer. It's okay. Yeah. But, and not to mention all the other wonderful little criminal activities he participated in. Again, Cheney walked away. All these guys walk away with a little bit of stink on them, a little bit of suspicion, and then over time, right down the memory hole. Doesn't matter. So, and the other thing is, the most profound and really dark, evil things are usually those which are best hidden. So the truth is, until we have full disclosure over a lot of things, it's very possible that even though Frank Underwood seems to be the outlandish portrayal of the president or of a politician, I mean, truthfully, there's many a thing that we don't really know in the broad daylight, right or wrong.
Fair.
What do you think of this discussion, Joe? Well, I was just sitting here thinking to myself that Ford did pardon Nixon, didn't he? I mean, he got by with it, too, even though he got caught. What happened to Nixon? Ford pardoned him, so that kind of goes along with that. And even though I haven't seen the show, you were asking about the difference in the parallel. And even though I haven't seen the show, I'm willing to bet that the character in the show has a much better vocabulary than the orangutan in the Oval Office.
Oh, now there is a grand exception, and you're correct. Your perception is right. Because
third graders have a better vocabulary.
Most toddlers can, handle the language better, but, these guys are bad. They're losers. Okay. All right. Not toddlers. 7-year-olds. They're losers. They're bad. They're sick. And we're going to, handle them because it's very sick. It's very sad. It's very sad. Sorry. Anyway.
Don't forget the beautiful piece of chocolate cake, man.
Well, look, every child enjoys a beautiful piece of chocolate cake.
Every child, every person.
But most people do, but children especially revel in beautiful pieces of chocolate cake. I'm sorry.
I still get excited around chocolate cake.
Well, okay, fine. I don't get excited. I'm happy to see it. But you ever watch a little kid,
yes.
like they have just been given everything in the world on that plate. So I'm imagining that must be the excitement, because what else is he going to get excited about? Anyway, okay. I almost went to a bad place there, and I'm not going to do it.
So close.
So close, you're right.
Guess I'm going to have to push a little harder next time.
Yeah, you might have to. But look, the truth is that there is a whole lot more eloquent character here in Frank Underwood than we have in the Trump presidency. Here's what's interesting to me is that really the Trump presidency has not been revealed in House of Cards. I'm wondering what next season's going to look like.
Yeah, next season's going to be really interesting.
I mean, outside of the fact that you have an election pretty much, where the majority of the people didn't vote for the person in office, outside of that, you don't have Trump being represented yet because they filmed this and wrote it long before, his circus began. So they didn't have that material to draw from. And you wonder how it is they're going to, integrate it into the greater story, don't you?
I don't know if they should try to integrate it. I think they have an interesting story path so far. Spoilers for House of Cards. This is the first season Frank is really vulnerable. This is the first season, this next season will be at least the first season he doesn't have Doug and Claire behind him.
Well, but see, now Doug was a great attack dog for him. The chief of staff, by the way, the guy who really did all the dirty work, which always these guys have somebody who does that, the heavy lifting. But Doug actually became a liability through the fact that he handled that hooker the wrong way, right? And stuff like that earlier. So really, the roots of his strength became part of his liability now, and led to, a guy almost being impeached, in the series. And we'll leave it at that as far as giving them plot points. But the idea here is that, you usually do need a group of subservient criminals in order to carry on your greater criminal enterprise. I think that point was made succinctly. But Joe's point about eloquence, though, I love it, because he is so dead on and he didn't even see the series. Frank is extremely well spoken, thinks quite far ahead strategically. He's definitely not playing checkers while others are playing 3D chess. Okay, Joe. So, you're dead on there. What other thoughts do you have, though, before we move on into the how might they integrate the Trump thing into this? What other thoughts do you have, just, from your non-observations? So intuitive. I love it. What else you got?
Well, I like the way you guys were comparing the criminality. I tend to agree with you, though, Chuck, that I don't think any series could ever do justice to how much criminality is actually going on that no one sees.
Give them time.
They are, you know what, though, Joe? It is actually well layered, so that I almost think that this is more like a documentary than a work of fiction. I mean, it's a compilation. Obviously, like I said, different presidents. I mean, you can see Ford, you can see Nixon, you can see Reagan at certain points, you can see Bush, you can see Obama, you can see a lot of the modern presidents all rolled into this. And the extra criminality, it actually reaches some pretty extreme levels that, like I said, I didn't expect to see it. I would never expect anybody to make a show like this, because I'm figuring, some of the people that are really in charge might come and knocking on your door if you do it. That's how far they go in the show, Joe.
I guess there's always the possibility, too, if it's that true, the powers that be delivered the script.
That is I have wondered about that, actually, Dylan. I mean, what do we actually know about it? Do you know anything about the scriptwriters? Sometimes you do.
Yes, the writers, I don't remember their names, but for this latest season, they actually directed all of the episodes as well. They were longtime scriptwriters, but the director and showrunner dropped. So this season had all new showrunners.
Which might explain why they intensified the criminality, because whoever it is that's behind the script here, I think has a deep understanding of what is likely going on behind closed doors, windows, and shades. Because some of this stuff is things that we've suspected, right?
One of the writers, Michael Dobbs, was a British conservative politician.
Oh, there we go. Well, that helps. Probably some of the people that listen in the UK would know who he is. I'm not aware of it. Like I said, I've just been a casual observer of this show, and I think it is one of the more brilliant things out there.
And the showrunner was a press aide for Howard Dean.
Again, making lots of sense here, Joe, right?
Yeah.
This is the first research I've done into the showrunners and writers.
And this is just on the surface. I bet if you scrape around a little more, you discover those Anderson Cooper type characters and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Almost always something like this has an advisor who was intelligence in some way or other on the payroll.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that there's somebody on there.
He worked for Estonia. Helped out with the EU, so he's got a lot of governmental experience.
Nice. Well, we're about halfway through, well, a little more than halfway through this hour, and I've taken up a lot of time with my observations. But what other pieces of gold are in this plot? Do you think that make it just so realistic, despite the fact that we know it's allegedly not?
I think the main thing that brings this to pseudo-realism is the characters and really the understanding of the process. This show has a very intricate understanding of the process itself. They do, in season 5, they have an election, but it goes off the rails, sort of. And they do some things technically with the political process that most shows, including something like Designated Survivor on ABC, don't do.
Another interesting fact is that they bring in the hacker aspect in a most unique fashion.
This is just me personally. I didn't like the hacker character.
Well, no, I don't like him either. He's definitely, but you know what? He's perfect because most of these guys that are brilliant like that, that I've ever met, they lack personality. They really do. I mean, there's a couple of guys that I've known that have personality, but they're very quirky. But a lot of these guys who are just understand these systems so perfectly, and are able to manipulate things like that, like this character does, usually that's about an accurate approximation of how they are.
And I think the most undersold character of the new season was the operator for Joel Kinnaman's character, Mark Usher, I think.
Oh, well, see, now, I forgot his name when you were talking about him there for a second until you brought it up, because I was thinking, oh, yeah, right, the Roger Stone guy, because that's basically what he is.
He's Roger Stone, Roger Ailes, and a little bit of Hoover all kind of rolled into one.
Well, see, now, I think you left out Steve Bannon. So, yeah, he's a composite character for sure. But a political operator like this, a hatchet man who really understands the metrics of being a hatchet man, yeah, kind of important to these guys.
And I didn't notice his character till like the second to last episode.
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing, though, with these guys. Most of the people that are really the advisors to these puppets are the guys who don't get a title, who don't get a job. They just happen to be in that, that nexus of advisory. Like Roger Stone to Donald Trump, which I find really fascinating considering that we are looking at almost a Watergate 2.0 in some cases regarding obstruction of justice, abuse of power, things like that, which, no, I'm not sold on the left-wing rhetoric. I'm telling you that, first of all, they're not going to get him for obstruction of justice while he's in office. Abuse of power is impeachable. Okay, and that is the only remedy that the American people have for this behavior at the moment. So those that are screaming, lock him up, you're ahead of yourselves.
I think there's a chance.
Well, see, and I disagree there because generally speaking, the chosen ones get to walk away. Even Nixon was not impeached, remember. Right?
But Nixon had to, unless I'm remembering my history, Nixon had a little bit of political aptitude.
Well, no, Nixon had some political aptitude, but
Trump's a bumbling fool who everyone in his inner circle, whether they want to or not, has been drawn into this in some way, shape, or form. There's no Ford to get him out of this one.
Well, sure there is. There's Mike Pence.
I think there's going to be a web I think Pence is going to get caught in this web too.
Okay, that's a possibility, but I still say that this guy walks away effectively with no problem, and he'll leave the presidency when he's good and tired, because he's not really the one who's in control. That's the great part about this, that even in Nixon's case, it was the strength of the advice that he was given that allowed him to not only walk away and have Ford pardon him, but also allowed him to protect his tapes all the way till the day he died, basically, from getting a full public outing. So we never got the full Nixon tapes until he was dead and gone. And history started to treat him a little differently by then. It was literally like it kept on ice long enough so that people could forgive what was happening. And I think that's exactly the same kind of thing that they learned from that situation to always do, even if you're throwing these guys under the bus. I mean, go ahead.
I don't know if you can help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting facet here, is that publicly we're being shown, this push and pull, and maybe I'll reveal my tapes, maybe there aren't tapes. It's too funny because he's being allowed to do this. And Nixon wasn't.
I have a theory that there's no information to back this up. It's just sort of my gut feeling. He is an example. Trump is an example. Or Trump is not an example, I'm sorry. He's the fall guy to make people believe they have power. They're going to hang him out to dry. They're going to let this process get rid of him.
Well, see, again, I got to disagree. Joe, I'm wondering what you think about that. I know, we don't like to, and I don't like to stay steeped in politics because after a while, how many showers can you take? Right?
Right.
But honestly, I mean, when you look at, the emergence of these stories, and the reason why I point out Watergate too is not just because the mainstream does. I was telling you people this a long time ago because Roger Stone's there, who was also there for Nixon, in Trump's ear, no advisory position, but yet he's dealing with hackers and maybe assisting with WikiLeaks and who knows what else Stone is doing because he's a political dark rider. He's the guy who comes out as a hatchet man. This is his job. So, friend of Donald Trump's for 40 years. Interesting what's happening here. But what do you think? At the end of the day, I'm convinced that nothing of significance is going to happen to Trump. Some of his subordinates and inner circle and whatever will go right under that bus nicely, to give people the idea that something was done. But really, with a GOP-controlled House and Senate and investigations being interfered with from seemingly all sides, and a government you can't trust anyway, what do you think is going to get done?
Well, I think that it's a pretty simple formula. As long as Trump plays ball, he'll be right where he is, and no harm will come of him. And if he doesn't play, and it appears to me that he's playing ball and batting 1,000, but even if he were impeached, I don't think that Pence would be entangled because maybe Trump is just the means to Pence being the president.
Maybe. I won't rule out Pence being president. I still think that's the most likely, but I can't rule out that he's entangled in this because it's like patient zero. Everyone around him gets infected.
Well, these are interesting thoughts, but Pence, for the most part, I think is actually a true believer in the right-wing conservative narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
which Trump is not. He has no principles, not even the fake idiot principles that are prescribed to him by the left or the right. None of that. He has none. His only principle really is the promotion of the Trump brand.
Yeah, which is why he's going to go down.
Well, see, but that's the thing. If that was the case, which interesting today, Warren Buffett. I mean, I read a thing today. It probably happened a couple days ago. Warren Buffett pulled out of Walmart, so I'm a little confused. But some of these guys, the whole purpose is he's in there, and he thinks that's what he's doing, and he can get away with it because that's his right to do so, because he's making America great again. They're keeping him busy in the playpen, telling him that these are actual trucks when the real trucks are rolling outside. That's fine. But the fact is, I don't think they're even going to let him fall, because he's now become a symbol by which they can keep us distracted and keep us arguing with each other. So you can't let him completely get, destroyed.
No. But I think there's only so much you can do for someone who's that erratic and that incompetent. He will destroy himself. And I think there's going to be a point where the elites think, you know what, we're not going down with this ship. We can weather this loss.
Well, you know what? There's always the constitutional solution, which the right-wingers can pop out of their pocket if he really does self-immolate himself on the stage, the world stage. And that is that they can state that he was, simply something got him sick, and that he is now not competent. No, I'm dead serious.
Did you see the Roger Stone clip?
Which one? The one where he's claiming that the elites tried to assassinate him, or?
No. It's
okay.
It's one with Alex Jones where he says that the left is going to claim Trump has Alzheimer's. He's preemptively accusing the left of an attack they have yet to use.
Oh yeah, but I haven't seen that clip. I have not. Joe, have you seen that clip?
I haven't. I don't watch any Alex Jones clips.
It got sent to me.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. I usually try and avoid that stuff because, I got a little PTSD, man. I don't need my anxiety amped up. Okay? I'm telling you, I avoid this guy for that reason. Sorry. Alex Jones, yes.
He wasn't in the clip, though, so...
Well, like most things that he pushes on that website, it's really got nothing to do with his work. Oh, did I say that out loud? I think I did. Excuse me. Anyway, yeah, it's that kind of night, Dylan. Look, how do we put a pretty bow? Yeah, hey, look, it's always fun on this show. How is it that we put a pretty bow on the discussion of House of Cards, though? Because I kind of want to get through this and finish it, and I went way off track as usual, but I think it's an interesting show. I think it's actually very revealing, even if you don't buy necessarily all the plot points and acceptable pieces of the story arcs, whatever. I think it really does bear for the entire world quite nakedly the soul of the American politic, the way it functions in reality, whether you want to take these things as symbolic or as direct references to real life events. I think it absolutely reveals the ugliness underneath all of it, and shows people that where is the part where they are serving the people more than themselves. I think that is, one of the overall messages. And I think it's extremely accurate and revealing in that way. What do you think?
I agree with everything you said. And on the entertainment side of it, this is a really well-acted, well-made, well-written show that really does deserve more attention than it's given.
Yeah, it does. And look, I don't like to endorse a lot of entertainment entities, but this one is entertaining and thought-provoking, and I do believe revealing. So, again, Joe, I'm not going to push you to go watch it, but I'm telling you, if you find yourself in a position where you got to watch something on Netflix, this is a good choice.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with House of Cards.
Yeah, because it would let you watch something and you could have that disconnect from the reality of it so long as you maintain it in your mind that this isn't real. I think you'll be okay, but once you start to understand that, if you want to start terrifying yourself, you can do it with this thing too. So I think it provides you many options, Joe.
Okay. I think I can tie the two together for you in a pretty little box with a bow on it, man.
Okay, do it.
So we were discussing whether or not Trump would be out of office, this and that. Oh, my gosh, I just said his name. Now I am going to have to shower for sure. But anyway, just like with TV, as long as Trump is getting good ratings, he's going to be there. As long as House of Cards is getting good ratings, the show will continue. I can't see a difference. As long as the ratings are up, the show goes on.
Well, isn't that the most profound thing here? That's the truth of it. You know why these things are perpetuated? And again, I have no objection to people doing entertaining things for the sake of entertainment. But when it comes to the reality show that our politics are, when it comes to the reality show that they try to make out of people's lives, some cases very recklessly, heartlessly, et cetera, et cetera. The only reason why this goes on in such a massive way is because there is an audience for it. And while the ratings stay up, you're damn right the show will go on. And that's the overall truth here. The more that we allow ourselves to be the receiving audience of, the negativity that comes from propaganda and allowing sentimentality to be the trigger point for us to take actions that are not necessarily in our own best interests. This is really the game. So they can keep us at each other's throats as long as they like, so long as we will continue to adopt labels and name ourselves as particular sects of this or that religion, which American politics does function very much like an out-of-control religion with different sects and things like that. So long as they utilize it in exactly the same way that they have utilized religion for millennia, long before the United States existed and long before some of the countries that might be hearing this show have existed. Fact is, this is the game. Divide, conquer, and distract. And you can choose to be distracted. You can choose to be entertained. I don't object to that. You're free to do so. And I do it myself. And I think all of us do on some level. It might be music. It might be viewing nature. It might be taking time to just really enjoy and appreciate the air you're breathing. You take a time to have a distraction from the world around you because it is therapeutic. But don't ignore the world around you at the detriment of yourself, the people you care about, and letting those that are in control run over top of you because you simply were not paying attention. So I think that's the overall message here tonight that goes along with both hours. And really, I thank again Regular Joe, who is awesome, man. I love the fact that this guy is a listener. He's got nothing to promote. He's just here speaking a little common sense, and actually a lot of common sense. And I appreciate you, man. I want you to know that.
I appreciate what you do, Chuck, too, as well. I've been all through the alternative media, and you seem to be the voice in the wilderness, if you will. Moses Ochelli.
Okay. Moses Ochelli. All right, I'm not even going to respond to that because, man, we could start another hour with that one. Dylan, it is always fascinating to hear from you, and I appreciate your analysis. I know you'd really rather get into the entertainment aspects of these things, but I always drag you through the social, political ramifications of everything, don't I?
Yes, because and I don't mind doing half and half.
Well, you look, I'm that kind of creature. I can appreciate entertainment, but I'm also not going to be propagandized by it. Like I said,
I understand.
You can choose your distractions, and you can choose how much they distract you. And this is something that you should control. Don't allow other people to control it. You agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we are down to the last couple of minutes here, and I'm going to say something that I don't usually say. It would be extremely helpful if you guys shared the knowledge that the show is aired on the networks it's aired on, that it is rebroadcast in the places it is rebroadcast. It would be very nice. This is a great way to contribute to be a greater part of the Ochelli Effect yourselves, because you, the listener, are actually the effect. And all the people that contribute to this information and discussion are also part of the Ochelli Effect one way or another. Yeah, I may not give titles to everybody, but everybody who contributes in any way, shape, or form, that's what I consider you. It's not about me. I just put my name on it because I wasn't very original about it, and I didn't want to hide behind something else. I wanted it to be, look, I'm the guy out front, because if they come for us, I will have no problem taking that bullet first if that's the way it's got to go. So that's how it is. But I do appreciate you guys who do share the information. Let people know about the show. Come and listen to the live show. Participate in the chat. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful to people who are members at Ochelli.com, and also those who have made contributions in a financial sense, but in an intellectual sense, in a feedback sense. And like I said, simply sharing the information, sharing the show, downloading it, on your podcatchers, whatever, doing all that. I appreciate all of it. And I want you guys to know that we're going to continue to do this for as long as I have the smartest damn audience on the planet, which you are. So I appreciate you guys. And again, thanks, Dylan.
Thank you.
And regular Joe, man, you just got thanked in that massive group right there, because you have made many a contribution to this show. And at some points, you've kind of been my conscience, because, I doubt sometimes that like I said, what I'm saying is being heard properly. And then you respond, and you tell me a lot of times about something I said or something I referenced. And, you know what? You assure me sometimes where others don't speak or say anything, and they just listen to the show and they don't participate. You've actually been extremely helpful, and on and off air. So you're kind of special there, Joe. You're not really regular Joe. You're sort of special Joe over here, just so you know.
Well, I appreciate that, Chuck.
Oh, and that question, hold on just a second, that question in the chat room about where are our accents from? Dylan, his accent is sort of Jersey-esque. Mine is definitely New Jersey, New York style. And Joe, he's got kind of a general calm Southern accent. That's the accents you're hearing. And yes, there are many accents in America, and I'm very sure that was a European listener who asked that question. So I just wanted to clear that all up. Me and Dylan, well, we kind of grew up in similar areas, but I was a little north of him, so I'm a little rougher sounding.
And
Joe,
he goes outside more than I do.
Well, that too. And Joe, definitely you would say he's got a Southern U.S. accent. And so there you go. There's your answers. So what were you saying, Joe?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to tie in to how many times you remind me of Jiddu Krishnamurti, if I may. And tonight's no exception. Even tonight you were talking about labels, and it reminded me of this quote from Jiddu Krishnamurti. When you call yourself an Indian or a Muslim or a Christian or a European or anything else, you are being violent. Do you see why it is violent? Because you are separating yourself from the rest of mankind. When you separate yourself by belief, by nationality, by tradition, it breeds violence. So a man who is seeking to understand violence does not belong to any country, to any religion, to any political party or partial system. He is concerned with the total understanding of mankind.
And of course, you know, that guy is so brilliant, and I don't deserve to be compared to him, but I do appreciate it, man. It is amazing the amount of work. Where would you point people to examine that if they've never heard of him before, by the way?
There's plenty of his work on YouTube, hours and hours, but I would start with the book, The First and Last Freedom, simply because Aldous Huxley did write the forward on that one. It's very insightful.
Absolutely, and hopefully we've been a little bit insightful on the Ochelli Effect here on a Monday night, you know, Moon Day as it is. And tomorrow night we'll be back with J.P. Satilli, Mike Swanson, and you know there's going to be a few surprises this week. I think Unique Lee might join us, and even Jim Willie at some point. So stick around and keep tuning in, and everybody, please be well. Take care.